So I'm starting to get my main crop potatoes out of the ground now. These outdoor ones, I didn't look after them at all really this year. I didn't water them, just had a lot going on, and all the foliage completely died back about a month ago. So they haven't reached their full potential, so I'm going to start getting them out of the ground today and over the next couple of days, and see how many we got, and then I'll be starting on the containers. So what I'm doing is I'm just basically digging these potatoes out of the ground now. There are a fair few smaller ones in here because, like I say, the foliage completely died back about a month ago, but started to die back 6-7 weeks ago. So really, they haven't had much of a growing season. And there are a fair number of smallish potatoes, that sort of size, but there's decent ones too, sort of what you'd class as a medium potato. There's none that are particularly large, but it does show me that the ground would, you know, had I watered them, they would have been better. What I did is I rested all this potato patch area for a year, and I did let all the weeds and things come up, trimmed it down, and tilled it all in, so it sort of added the weeds, and I put a bit of a cover crop in there as well. So the ground has improved, I think, slightly. There's no scab at the moment. I had a bit of scab in here before, and they seem fine. And I did put a few handfuls of chicken manure pellets just scattered over, and about half of a 10-kilo bucket of bloodfish and bone just scattered over the whole area. But other than that, I didn't mulch them, didn't water them, and I didn't weed or anything either. I just completely left them to it. So they haven't done too bad. There's about 2 kilos per seed potato, roughly. Some not so good. These here probably only a pound, I should think, half a kilo. But you know, up to 2 kilos. So I'm not going to get a massive harvest out of here. You know, like I say, the potential was there, but obviously the foliage died back. So all I'm doing is I'm going along, I'm digging them out, and just putting them, as I dig them out, putting them in the next space along, and just letting them dry out a little bit whilst the sun's out, and then I'm going to get them all up into buckets. And all I'm doing as I'm sorting them is I'm just putting any of the dinky ones, there's not masses, but as you can see, there's quite a few dinky ones there, and then just putting the more usable sized ones into separate buckets. So I'm just kind of sorting them as I go. And what I'll do with the really small ones, they are fine, perfectly fine for eating. They make nice little roasters, or just boil them up in the skins, you know. But what I will do, because my total potato harvest is going to be in the hundreds of kilos, so what I'm thinking, I might use the smaller ones for chicken food. Just, you know, every couple of days boil up a nice pan full of the dinky little ones, and just use them as a chicken food to save me some money on chicken food. So that's the plan anyway. So I'm just kind of sorting them as I go. So I'll get what I can done today. It's quite a big patch, and I do suffer with my back a bit, so whether I get it all done today or not, I don't know. Once I've done these, I'm going to finish harvesting. I've only done one of my tubs, and that was averaging 4 kilos for 2 seed potatoes. So similar amount to the better ones here, but as we go further along the containers, the foliage is stronger. It's got a little bit of blight on one side, and it's started to move across. So I'm hoping that I'll get perhaps up to 5 kilos or more in some of the pots. But we'll get onto those after I've got all these in and into buckets and dried out a little bit. Right, so it took me about 3 hours, just over probably, to get them all picked and sorted and in here. So I'm going to be suffering my back tonight, I think, but I think a beer might be in order. But the results are in, and basically of these nice sized potatoes that I'm going to put into my chicken pellet sacks, the nice paper sacks, I'm going to dry them for a day, well, rest of today and tomorrow, and then I'll go through them and check them, make sure there's no blemishes and that, and I'll put them into the paper sacks, take them home. There's 85 kilos, it's roughly 20 kilos for a full bucket, and I've got just over half bucket there. So 85 kilos. In total it was 110 kilos. So I've got 25 kilos. There's 10 kilos of these small ones, and then 15 kilos of these which are damaged, or there was quite a big patch in the middle where there was a lot of potatoes with this sort of damage, these little holes. So I don't know if that's wireworm or what that is, but it was all in one area, quite a big sort of circle in the middle of the patch, and that's where pretty much all those come from. So they're either damaged ones from the fork or those insect damaged ones, but they're not going to go to waste. I'll boil them up down here. I've got my gas hobs and some old saucepans, so I'll boil them up for the chickens, give them some potatoes a couple of times a week. So 25 kilos of chicken feed and 85 kilos of sorted, the sort of bigger potatoes. I don't think that's that bad really, when you think the foliage on these plants was completely dead a month ago and started to sort of wilt and die 6-7 weeks ago. So they've only really had sort of half the amount of time growing, or 2/3 that they should have had. So in actual fact, size wise, I don't think they're too bad. Obviously had I watered them, I'd have probably got a lot larger potatoes, and the smaller ones would have come on, so it would have been right up there. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to get these stored. It did pour rain. I was leaving them out to dry in the sun, and then we had a sudden rainstorm, so everything got a bit wet. So I just got them in the buckets and got them in here, put them up on a pallet, and there's always a nice breeze coming through here, so I'm hoping that it will dry. But what I'll do is I'll come back tomorrow and I'll tip a bucket out and see if they've dried inside or not. Excuse me. If they haven't, then I will probably just put some straw on the ground and tip them out on some straw just for tomorrow, and then go through them and just give them one last check before putting them into the sacks. But anyway, over the next few days I will get on with my containers, and I'll sort of compare harvests to in-ground, although it's not a really fair comparison because these died off. But anyway, it's 85 kilos of potatoes that I didn't have before, so I'm well happy with that. So I'm about halfway through knocking out my buckets, and I just thought I'd show you a quick couple of buckets to show you the sort of sizes I'm getting. It is a little bit strange. So some of the buckets I'll get a lot of sort of medium-sized potatoes, and then others I'll get maybe 8 or 9 sort of quite big ones. So I don't quite know whether it's the number of shoots on the seed potatoes that does that. I'm gonna have to have a bit of a play around next year, maybe reducing shoots and seeing if that affects the size of the potatoes. But anyway, I'm averaging between 3 to 4 kilos a bucket. I've had a couple that are 4.5 kilos a bucket, and I've had a couple that are under 3. But I'm hoping to get around the 200 kilo mark anyway. But I'll just show you a couple of buckets. I'm definitely gonna have enough potatoes for me in any case, so I'm more than happy. So this is looking like another sort of medium size. Now what I am noticing, some of the buckets, not all, I'm getting a bit of scab, and others I've got a bit of what I assume is slug damage. And what I do with anything like that is a bit scabbed up and isn't probably going to keep is I'm putting that in the chicken feed bucket. So I've got a couple of buckets over there from the ones that came out the ground. Anything that's a bit small, a bit scabby, Milo, no, give me that, give, good boy, give, good boy. Anything that's a bit scabby or a bit small, damaged in any way, little ones like that, I'm just putting in the chicken feed bucket, because this will all save me money in any case anyway. I'm boiling up, I've got a gas hob and a saucepan set up back there, and I'm boiling up a pan full of potatoes every day for the chickens going into winter, so it's all going to save me money. So I basically just go through the bucket like this, little ones in there, anything half decent I'm keeping, and just checking for damage as I go. So yeah, these are sort of medium sized. Not too damaged, just a couple with a bit of scab on in this one, nothing too bad. But yeah, I mean, they've done really well. And harvesting the ones in the ground, I did damage a few with the fork. Obviously you don't get that when you're doing them in buckets because you're just tipping them out. So I just tip that on the compost ready to get mixed in, and then have a look at another one. I'd actually just weigh that one and see what we're looking at. Obviously I've thrown little ones in there, so that is just over 3 kilos. So that is a slightly sort of smaller harvest. Just trying to be fairly gentle with them because I don't want to damage the skins. And what I'm doing is I'm just leaving these in the buckets for a day or two, just out in the open to dry. If it's sunny, I'll put them out in the sun for a little bit, just to let the skins sort of harden up a touch. So there's a few more bigger ones in here. A little bit of damage, couple of spots, but nothing too bad. So they're all very good, usable size. I mean, these are the sort of size you'd expect when you buy a bag of potatoes. You get varying sizes, and I think compared to in the ground, the quality is a little bit better. Size is similar, but obviously in the ground this year, like I said, I didn't really look after them. I just kind of left them to it. Oh, the grits, that one's got a bit of green lights that'll go in the chicken feed. That's just virgin, I'll keep that one virgin on. I just think because I've got more than I need, I'm not going to mess around with all these little ones. I do like the little mini roasters, just cook them in their skins sometimes, but like I said, I've got so many. I'm definitely self-sufficient in potatoes this year, so there's no point in messing around with them if I can have decent sized ones. I'll check through as I sack them up as well, just to make sure once they're dry whether I've missed any damage or not. So basically everything pretty much, bar the really obvious ones, will stay in the buckets, and then I'll put them into the potato sacks, into the old chicken feed sacks, and I'll just spend a few hours just checking literally each one as I go, making sure that I'm not sacking anything up that is gonna rot. So I'll just tip one more out. So again, some good sized ones, nice and clean. You know, any dirt that has stuck to them, it brushes off fairly easily, but I'm not going to worry too much when I sack them up and they're a bit drier. I'll just gently just rub them with my hands and just get off what I can that way, and that's fine. So like I say, 60 pots. I mean, 3 to 4 kilos a pot. A couple have been over, a couple have been under. So, you know, if I get 180 to 200 kilos, something like that, then I am well happy with that. There we go. So I mean, that's a couple of buckets in there. And that is just over 6 kilos. So those last 3 buckets have been about 3 kilos a bucket. But like I say, I've had some up to and around 4. But even at 3 kilos a bucket, that's 180 kilos. I've already got 110, 85 kilos usable out of the ground. So yeah, plenty for what I want anyway. So I'm going to get on and finish all these buckets, and I will come back with the totals. Right, so I've got all the potatoes harvested that I'm going to. I'm leaving 10 buckets with the potatoes in the soil because I just want to see how they keep like into the winter. I might tip a couple out sort of through November, a couple in December, and through January and February, just to see how they keep just in the soil in here. I've let it dry out a little bit now, so it's just slightly moist. So it's, you know, whether it'll freeze or not, I don't know, but I can wrap it in fleece anyway, and I'll keep them down here by the straw bales. I'll try and keep the moist and things away from them. But just as a little test, I want to do that. So anyway, the totals. So I had about 80 kilos of first earlies. I had taken a plant out of each bed before I did the full harvest, just to sort of see if they were ready. And it came in at just under 80 kilos. So with those two plants, it'd probably be over 80 kilos, but we call it 80 kilos of second earlies. And then out of the ground, as I said earlier, it was 110 kilos, but only 85 kilos of usable. A lot of them had sort of slug damage, and a few that I damaged with a fork. Excuse me. So out of the tubs so far, I have had, got to try and remember my figures now. I've had 180 kilos out of the tubs so far, 150 good ones, and I've got 30 kilos so far of bad ones. I had a stretch of pots, the row at the back nearest the fence, don't know why, but just major slug damage on almost every pot. So, you know, they're not going to store for any length of time. Lots of little dimples, little holes, just sort of bitten into them. Just real shame. But what I'm doing is I'm using these to feed the chickens, so it's going to save me a bit of cash anyway. Feed them to chickens. I've got more than I need. So yeah, what was that? 180 kilos, 150 of usable, 30 bad ones, but I'll count the full weight. So 180 kilos, 10 buckets left at potentially 4 kilos a bucket. These were from the better rows, like the middle row. So potentially up to about 220 kilos from the tubs, which is, it's fantastic. It's a little bit less than I was thinking if I was going for 4 kilos a bucket, but anyway, it's still fine. So in total, and this is including the damaged ones that I'm going to feed to the chickens, it will be a potential 220. Let's call it 210, because 110 kilos I had out the ground, 25 kilos I had damaged ones there as well. So 190 kilos that'd be with the first earlies. So if we call it 210, which out of these 10 buckets I'll easily get 30 kilos. So I've basically done 400 kilos of potatoes. Not all of them usable. I've got probably between 50 and 60 kilos of damaged and slug damaged ones. But like I say, they're all going to be used. So I've got well over 300 kilos of usable potatoes in any case. So, you know, really happy with that. So all I'm doing now, as I've been harvesting them, I've basically put them on a pallet here. These are my ones out the ground. They're in bags already. They've been tied and put in the bags and checked over. All I've done is I've left these that I've harvested in these buckets, and I've got a load of plastic here, and once I stood them out for a couple of days, let them dry in the breeze in the middle there. Then I've put them over here a bit more sheltered now that they're dry, and just kept them in the dark. So all I'm doing now is just spending a bit of time, just basically, I mean, they're fairly clean anyway. As you can see, they're not smothered in the pots. So all I do is I just give them a gentle rub, get anything loose off, not too worried. And I'm just checking that I've got all the damaged ones out, because I don't want to put anything in the bags that will you know, not store and potentially cause the others to go off and rot as well. So just checking through as I go. And like I say, you don't have to really scrub them. I just literally do that. The skins are nice and tough now. They've toughened up. When you first harvest the potatoes, you can scuff the skins really quite easily. So it just takes a few days for them to just toughen up a bit. Like I say, I put them in the breeze, that dried them off, and I've just left them here. It's been about a week since first sort of starting to empty the pots. So yeah, this is going to take me a few hours to do this, but it's worth it. And it's just a bit like that one, you see. That's got 2 or 3 little slug holes, and there's actually feels a bit hollow, like it's dead in the middle. So just anything like that will go in the bad pile. So this is what I'm going to do, and what I am also going to do, and I will probably do a little video on it, something I've never done before. I want to get another damaged one. I want to get self-sufficient in seed potatoes. So as I go through, I'm going to probably be taking potatoes about that sort of size, and being careful with them, and just putting these. I'm going to try and store them in different ways, maybe in some straw, maybe in a box wrapped in a bit of newspaper, and I'm going to try and store all of my seed potatoes for next year, so I haven't got to buy any at all. I've still got my second earlies at home. They're the ones I'm using at the moment, so I'm going to actually take some of those out as well. So all of these main crop that I did a Desiree. So I think next year, I think I may just stick with a container, so I'll harvest enough seed potatoes to do my 60 containers again, and I may even try some in the no-dig beds next year as well, just to see how they do, main crops, and find some way of getting a bit of extra height in there. I was thinking about possibly some of my older buckets, cutting the bottom off of the bucket and sitting those in the no-dig beds, planting the potato down in the no-dig, and then filling the bucket up, so that it's sort of it's in a container but in the bed too. Just playing around with ideas really, for main crops, you know, to get that sort of height. But anyway, we'll see. I'll think about that next year. But yeah, so total harvest, I'm looking at about 400 kilos. So, you know, I'm really happy with that. Anyway, bit of a long video, I know, guys, sorry about that, but hope you enjoyed it, and hope it gives you a few ideas, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy.